the way we found the way to use it is like, oh, we can extract it and smoke it, but most people don't want to do that. And then sort of the other way to do it would be chew fresh leaves or chew dried leaves, and which can be strong and can be pretty powerful, but you got to really like a lot of really bitter plant matter, and you know, some people will gag, and some people can't chew it very vigorously in that way. So my work has been to try to merge these two things together. And I've come up with a pretty interesting, I don't know, substance, I guess we would say, a process to do that. And I'm pretty jazzed about it because what it does is it takes it. So if we can let's just break down square one. You know, if you smoke it, it comes on basically 0 to 30 seconds. You know, you have this intense out-of-body experience that you're peaked at like 2 minutes, 2 to 6 minutes. You're having the most craziest thing. That's in reality. Yeah, and then you just drop back out. Not workable. You know, very novel, strange experience, but there's no sort of level of transformation. There's no sort of reconnection and healing involved in that experience. And so, you know, that's sort of the dangers of short-acting psychedelic experiences. Is that, yeah, come on in, there you are. You know, short-acting psychedelic experiences are, where's the integration, right? Because whatever ecstatic experiences, you know, revealing these kinds of stuff is like, that's nice, but you need that slow, you know, you need a slow integration to kind of be like, well, here I am, this is what's going on, and this is that. So, you know, smoke salvia in a lot of ways. It seems to be, from my experiences and from talking to people, it's going to take 6 to 8 months after a really strong experience to kind of understand what you saw. You know, you're like, oh my gosh, I saw this and that, and this and that, and this and that, and it doesn't make sense. And then, you know, months later, you know, synchronicities all pumped up like crazy, and you're walking around and slowly all starts to make connections. So, I'm not an advocate of short-acting psychedelics at all, just because of that. And then the other method, you know, right, is chewing the leaves. And so when you chew the leaves, it slowly comes on anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes, right? And then it gently comes on, gently comes on, gently comes on, and then you have this experience, and then it hangs in there 40, 50 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, and it comes down. And so that, let's see. But so one of the things, okay, so here's one of the things with chewing though, is the amount of leaves you would need to chew to have a super, super powerful experience like the smoke experiences are basically beyond what most people can do. Yeah,
burrito, like Chipotle.
Yeah, Chipotle. You know, and there's ways to tweak that. You can put ginger in it. You know, you can help open up the membranes in the mouth to kind of get it pulled through. So one of the other interesting things about the chemistry of it is that it doesn't. It's not water soluble. It doesn't really absorb through the stomach. If you crystallize, you extract it, you crystallize Salvia, and you swallow it down, it's not going to absorb through your stomach. And even if you take that crystal and you put it in your mouth and try to absorb it through there, because that's really, when you chew the leaves, it absorbs through the membranes in your mouth. So it won't absorb through there. So it's in the past, other people have tried to do this, and people report varying effects of making tinctures, and it is soluble in alcohol. But the problem with that, the alcohol tinctures is that alcohol will burn your mouth. You'll have sores on your mouth, and you need to have that, you know, in your mouth 10 to 15 minutes to get it all to absorb. So that's kind of in sort of the way people get around that. Oh, if it's burning too much, add water. So that's just sort of bad drunkism, right? How's all the sound in everybody? Good. So, on the sort of like the brain chemistry, it's kappa opioid receptor, and it is sort of like a very dysphoric experience.
But why would that make it illegal if people don't want to do it?
Yes, so most people don't want to do it. Yeah, so I mean, drug laws are selective.
It's like an anti-gateway drug.
Yeah.
So it's essentially saying go for it because you're not going to want to do it again? Or like what if you have a bad experience the first time you do it and then
then you don't want to do it again.
So clearly, no, but I'm just saying clearly, like, these laws are put into place irrationally.
Yes, because of fear, exactly. Yeah, law. I mean, drug laws are usually passed because there's ignorance, right? And people jump on this kind of like, oh my God, this thing's going to be the next LSD, right?
You can't argue that it's addictive.
Well, yeah, it's
like
actually
anti-addictive.
it's actually anti-addictive too. So this is like another aspect. And that, well, and I personally think on a metaphysical level, the spirits that are in Salvia or behind Salvia, the ones that actually like communicate on that frequency, have designed this portal in a way that you can't really abuse it. Yeah, you can't.
It's like ayahuasca in that way. It's like if you try to use it to get high, it just either will give you nothing or it'll give you something you don't like.
Totally agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like I think a larger social question too. Is you know, as you know. Geez, yeah. Okay. Did you have another question?
I did.
Yes.
It's kind of, well, what you were saying is kind of a segue to my next question, which is, like, what do you think the function of the very short acting? I know you sort of addressed this. Like the property of it being very short acting, what do you think the function of that is therapeutically, as opposed to like a longer, maybe like 5-hour experience with psilocybin? Or
So there, the short acting, I think its function for some people, at least the function in me, it embedded a sense of mystery and a sense of like, how do I interact with this and how do I work with this plant? And how do I bring this message? Because so one of the like phenomena is that most people will start to come in contact with beings or entities that you don't think are being generated from your own mind. You know, you're like, oh, there's this other thing that has an equal, if not greater, consciousness than me, and it's communicating something. So that's pretty interesting, right? So I think in some ways it is a way to ignite the sort of impregnate us with mystery in that sense. And for me, in my experience in Salvia, it started to communicate to me that bring me down to earth, basically, is the kind of thing to do. And so I started this sort of, sort of investigation on how to bring it back down. You know, examining all the dosing technologies, and and there's some people here that help me explore that. So I have a flotation tank, and so we started going in and chewing leaves, because that's one of the things. It's a very subtle experience. So like, okay, well, sensory deprivation tank is going to be really good because it's going to amplify the isolation. Yeah, it's going to make that focus really strong instead of being distracted. Because one of the main differences, I would say, from Salvia and classic hallucinogens is that it doesn't make you high in the beginning stages. Like the classics, kind of you get high until you really start to tap into the core transformative experiences. And that Salvia in some sense just gives you that weird core experience right away. Kind of just opens up that whole, base programming, locked in, deep stuff.
Sorry, do you think that's why it takes so long afterwards to integrate the experience and to understand it? Because you're just being thrown into this place out of context. There's no build-up, there's no preparation.
Yeah, well, I think that, there's maybe a couple of reasons for that. I guess one would be if you can't see the bridge clearly to a state, how are you going to know how to cross that? Because drugs only work because our brains are designed to accept them. These states of consciousness are natural, right? They're things we can experience. And so, any part of any medicine path is you want to just you use less and less, or you don't use the plant after a while because you've integrated those experiences and you've learned how to do that. And so, in the real short ones, if you're just transported to another place, it can be so other, you don't know how, you don't see how that even relates to your life. So that's why I think the scoping is really challenging for people. Right?
I smoke Salvia, it's so far off that I just feel like I have no idea what's going on. And then, you come back and it's very hard to integrate that and make that bridge.
Yeah.
That's why I think what you're doing is really fascinating.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, I was when you first started getting into slower acting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's been the fun of it, is making, let me see, okay. can go. Let's see. Where do we want to go with this from here?
Can you describe your products and how you
Yeah. So basically, in my looking at all the compounds and all the dosing technologies, right, and sort of looking at how can we make an extract that was orally, absorbed. There was a couple ways I started to approach it. I was started going trial and error. Okay, let's look at everything here. Let's see what can be a carrier. Let's look at it. Let's see what other compounds will amplify certain experiences that I think is the transformative one. And so I started going systematically through that, sitting down and sort of meditating, thinking about the plant. I'm not trained in anything except for psychonautics, which is self-initiated. So I'm just sitting there, I started going through this process of like, okay, what does it bind to? What amplifies certain aspects of the experience? Where the transformational experience is at? So, at one point I was putting it into liquids and mixing it with other things and other compounds like, like mints and gingers and stuff like that to help open up the mouth. So there's sort of a multi-faceted, complex kind of way to look at it. I wanted to have it needs to pass through into the bloodstream, right? That's one, and then it also needs to be guided to certain areas of the brain, and so that would be part of the other one. So, basically, everything I work with salvia, I believe salvia is a triad. So everything I do with salvia is based on a triad, and that triad can take many forms. So to distill it down to kind of like the core elements is like the three is like mind, body, spirit, classic metaphysical template, and salvia somehow really stays within this triad. So I approached it as that in some ways salvia was a spirit, and then the body would be something that would help carry it through the body, and then the mind would be another compound that would help open up and guide to the mind there. And so I kind of started just dealing with triads. So everything I kind of how I approach the salvia is in the triad form. And so basically one of the challenges with Salvia A is that if you put it in this sort of liquid, once you get it to a certain level, it's going to crash out and recrystallize. So you would need a lot of liquid. And it seemed to be in the work I was doing and figuring this out, like the amount of liquid you need would be quite a lot, and that the smaller it would be in, the better it would absorb. So basically right now what I have is I have it in a powder, which I do, it's in my car, but I'll bring some if anyone wants to buy some from me. This is also selling it. A powder that is put in the mouth and it slowly dissolves. And so it kind of solves the issue of putting it in a liquid or some sort of picture kind of recrystallize. Because when it recrystallizes, it's really hard to absorb back into the bloodstream. So, are you okay?
I always sneeze 8 times in a row.
Okay. So it's a powder, it's held in the mouth for about 5 to 10 minutes. It's dissolved, it slowly goes through into the bloodstream, and then it comes on slowly, effectively. And so this is the fun part of it, is now that there's sort of like, we're able to extract high levels of full spectrum salvia and pump it into a powder, we can hit levels and experiences that were beyond what was available to chewing. So it really is like having these very powerful, as like strong and clear as the smoke experience, but the workability, because it's a very gentle. And then, and salvia is much different than the sort of the classics. It has this kind of malleability to it. It has a sense of you need to build a relationship. So one of the core experiences of it and core themes about it is relationship. Relationship with yourself, relationship with people around you, relationship to salvia, relationship to that, relationship to history, relationship to memory. So that's kind of like I don't know, that's one of these themes about, I think, working with salvia is that when you got to learn how to kind of see it and meet it, and then allow it into your body and learn how to go deeper and deeper. So people often talk about reverse tolerance with salvia. And so I think that's kind of what it's like working with too, is like the more you do it, the less you need, because you actually know how to get to that space. So it's a really interesting plant in that way that, you know, I am very embedded in its matrix and its system that I do very little to actually go into its space. And when I sit and facilitate with people, there'll be times where I just get hit with a wave and not even taking it, you know, and just see like where it's going. Not always, but you know, sometimes it's very, you know, noticeable that like, wow, this is a real shift, and I understand that. So, you know, that's kind of the fun of, I think, why it's important to, you know, be kind of, I don't know, facilitate with people that understand the landscape. And that's kind of a no-brainer, but you become this kind of circuit, you know, for this experience, because it's a very specific experience. Who else got questions? Let's just throw some more out there. Yeah.
So, when I think about, or you know, for me, like chewing salvia was always like, it's kind of like this sort of vision quest where you have to like endure this really intense thing of like, you know, your whole mouth being full of like all this stuff and crap, you know, and it tastes crazy, and it's like so much material, it's really difficult to do. I feel like I always kind of like that was like part of that kind of made it more meaningful in some way of having to like go through, just kind of like with ayahuasca, like, you know, like puking and shitting and like going through this intense stuff to like get to the other side. And I was wondering if you think anything is lost in that with like when if you're making it easier to do.
Yeah, I mean, and so that was one of the things that I was sort of struggling with. It's just being like, should I try to change it? Again, when I started looking into like, should I even do this? And I was pondering that question because I believe the same thing, you know, just being like, that's a big part of the experience, and it keeps certain people out of this. And it keeps it protected in that way, you know, because that's the dangers of if you bring something like this and you make it easier for other people to do, the dangers is that prohibition, people trying to have a good time on it, you know, all this kind of stuff is going to ruin it and make it illegal. But I was meditating on that very idea, and I walk to my window and I look out and I see someone walking down the alley trying to shoot up as they're walking up. So the whole, you know, it was just a very clear, you know, West Baltimore, you know, it's just a very clear thing being like, it should be, you know, because there's people that need powerful psychedelic medicines, and we don't need like, in the future,
Like chew a cigar.
Yeah, those people aren't going to do it because they need something to find, and that's a risk. You know, there's always that double-edged sword, that other balance. You know, and if things are going the way they're going, I personally am more of the freedom free
Get it to
school.
the people.
Get it to the people, grassroots. We don't want large institutions or religions to tell us what we can or can't do to our consciousness. And that seems to be the two tracks where also the world is kind of going around. The force of like, I'm the doctor and I can give you your, you know, MDMA down here, or we're the church and we give you your ayahuasca. Bless both of them, but what about the people? Where's our revolutionary psychedelia, right? Let's go with that. Like, that's the relationship, that's the community of Salvia, that's the imprint. You know, and I think staying true to the plant and its mission and its ideas, it kind of has that template, that it's not a hierarchical one. If you even look at how it grows up and then it drops down and sends out roots. It very rarely grows by seeds, so there is no master plant. It's constantly going up and dying and growing up and dying and growing up and dying. So it's embedding each and one of us, you know, like that's how it wants to live inside of us, is by going, you know, through that way. And so this is kind of, as Baltimore people here, this is kind of the challenge. I've recently been like, okay, I've got this pretty good product. It's working, this medicine is strong, it's powerful, it's upped up, people are having these amazing experiences on it. What's the next step, right? What, you know, like, how do we expand this? It's in kind of in a strange legal, it's not illegal, but maybe it could be illegal if you upset someone in power. But technically, I can sell it to you if you're 21 or older in Maryland. You can possess it, it's not legal to possess. I think taking it might be questionable, but I recently decided, like, well, I think that there's such a great need, why can't we just push this? Why can't we just do this? Have a place where people come and they can do this above ground. And it's like, and then that answers a lot of the questions of drug tourism, of like all those sketchy, drug tourist stuff that happens with going down, wherever everyone goes to do drugs, Could there be an American version of Salvia? That's kind of the big question that I'm sort of asking. It's also such a movement and it's really embedded everyone in that way. And sort of, it's my experience that Salvia has that potential too to really kind of do that. They both have these very, and that's like, in some ways that's the antidote to our modern life, is being re-enchanted with the world. It's just like
it's almost like removing the layers, like opening up a little bit the curtain. Almost.
Yeah. And that's and you can kind of get down to the hippocampus and kind of like break it down apart with your programming, and you can get fun with that, and the data backs it up, and I think it is one of those ways to break. Everyone's got different brain chemistry in that way too. So I've been part of, while I was doing the making the powder, one of the things I noticed that it started to become more active through first pass metabolism. So I started experimenting and started making microdosing with that. So making a syrup for people to take a microdose. And that's like, I think, a whole wide world that's just unexplored. Just some, yeah, right? Yeah, let's
but
go.
I'm also
Your thumbs up.
I wonder, I don't know if you talked about this already, but are you finding that as you're upping the doses with powder administration, is it just kind of spreading the experience out for a really long time, or is it?
It's still within the 50 to an hour and a half, kind of depending on the person's sensitivity. As that peak and then settle down. But the real trick is swallowing it. It seems to metabolize very, very slowly. And so that's going to be like a whole other question of area exploration of like, what would be the dose and what would be the application for that? If you gave someone a massive dose and had it just release over 12, it could be up over 12 hours. My initial experiments with it seemed to be like, wow, room's really spinning heavily for 2 hours now, and I'm still really crazy. And it's 12 hours later, and I'm lying in bed, and I'm touching the wall, and I just see my brain cycle through all the other times in my childhood that I had touched the wall. Wow, this is really wild. So that may be an interesting, a simple correlation would be, with that, I guess for me, that would be the experience if you like massive dose and you just reset someone's brain for addiction or something, that would be a pretty interesting application for it. But I don't know.
Have there been studies about the effects of it for addiction?
There's been the rat ones, right?
Yeah, rats.
Yeah.
Cocaine, it stops cocaine administration, doesn't touch like food reward. It looks pretty
Really?
promising, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's acutely.
Whoa.
It's not like, while they're on the substance.
Say that again?
It's an acute, while they're on Salvia, like rats will stop self-administering cocaine.
And it's
And it's
been
been-
even more the stimulant side too than right? Is that my understanding?
It hasn't been, I don't think other classes have been looked at. So there's been interest in the cap opioid system as a target for cocaine medications treatment for 15 years, but it was thought studies were running these other cap agonists that pharma had developed earlier on, and it's we tested them in drug users and people went crazy. Oh my God, you can't. And they just had dysphoric responses because they weren't set up for a psychedelic type effect.
Yeah.
So I think some of the there's potential for something like this. Obviously, at least with other drugs, the other classic psychedelics, would suggest that administration procedures and context are absolutely critical for shaping what's going on.
Yeah. And this is kind of one that I think is interesting where I totally agree you have to prepare someone for a psychedelic experience. but I think where salvia most differs from the other psychedelics is that it doesn't enhance your senses in that way. Where the classic psychedelics, low levels, you're like, this is great, or oh, that feels crazy, you know what I mean? Sounds wild. Like salvia, the sensory world kind of just gets annoying. Like you don't really want to pay attention to it. You just want to go straight into that other dimension.
It's like everything is just distracting.
It's a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you try to just like look around and stuff, it's like it takes you away from the experience, and like it just kind of feels your own. You can't. You're sitting there like motor skills are all messed up, but like you're not really experiencing anything enjoyable. And just like
and that's such a beautiful design in that way. So it has this built-in protection. It can't really be abused for recreational purposes.
How does it work metaphysically?
Metaphysically?
How does it work? Yeah.
So, check this out. All right. Here we go. So as I said the triad, right?
Okay.
So imagine you're a human, and just break it down: mind, body,
Imagine
spirit.
you're a human.
Mind, body,
Scott,
spirit.
bear with us.
And you're basically, your reality field says, my mind is this much, my spirit is this much, my body is this much. We pretty much stay stable.
Okay.
Theoretically, I don't know about you, but most people are pretty much somewhat stable throughout the day. That like that's you. Your consciousness is locked in to your programming, and this is how I get around the day, right? And when somebody comes in, it basically will send a sawtooth wave. It's kind of I think the most common frequency and shape everyone talks about. So a sawtooth wave comes in and basically goes into that embedded circle and breaks those three elements up. So take, let's see, mind, body, spirit, and then you have this, Mickey Mouse head right here.
Yeah.
And you have these three here. And when they break apart, you're going to have communication between each one of those states. So between the spirit and the body, you have like chi or energy, spiritual energy, you become aware of that. Between the body and the mind, you kind of can go through memory or history, or sort of like the core programming through there, and through the mind and spirit, that's the imaginal realm. So that's where sort of entities and spirits kind of come through. And so you kind of can see this when people smoke salvia. They'll like fly into one of these corners because there's no control. Their balance is thrown off and they're just shot right into there. And when you come on slowly, since it deals with balance, it's being like the balance, our function of balance, you learn how to balance all these realms together. You try to slowly get all those elements together. So you're dealing with heaven and earth, and you're pulling all this together, and you kind of just like learn how to do that. And so it seems to be, at least in all the work we've been doing, I've been working with people here, some of you are in the room, it's just when, going over everyone's writings of their experiences, when people have the real transformation, all those elements are present. That they've like had this like contact with these entities, there's sort of a memory thing going on, they're aware of all like blockages in their body being removed, stuff like that. So there's my medicine.
How much is the fine?
How much is it? So basically, the way, so I have, my products right now, I've been selling 3 very large doses for $50. And those can be, depending on your sensitivity, those could be 6 medium, experiences, or 12 small experiences.
So, how does it work? Is it surfactant based? Is it based on like herbs, as you said, opening up your membrane?
Yeah, so capsaicin is one of the core things that allow the to open. So that's like a whole totally different awesome thing that I've been exploring is the more heat you put in there, the more actually the stronger the experience becomes. And so it works on a couple levels. It's a central nervous system stimulant, it actually opens up the pores, but it's also dealing with a lot of the same brain receptors. It also helps break all that stuff down and pull things in there and focus the sound in a really interesting way. Sure, anyone go for it.
So, Benji talked about that
So
What could be cool, what could be really studied, I think the difference is that with the classics, in some ways you become derealized. You know, there's that, the ego death or merging into it. Salvia Divinorum, in some ways, you're still pretty aware, like, especially in the slow onset, pretty aware that, hey, my body's in this room. There's that sort of categorization mind, be like, this is here, this is here, this is here, but you're having extreme out-of-body experiences. So that might be like an interesting thing if you can tease that apart. What are the components? Is it losing the ego, or is it truly just the change of your resonance of your body? Like, because in Salvia, I think it's a lot more like easier to integrate because you don't, you know, like, at least done slowly, there's a lot less of that, whoa, I was so confused, or, you know, I was Christ, you know.
That confusion is one of the words that people get.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The dysphoria, just the sheer confusion, and those are not the conditions under which you're going to have like this highly meaningful,
profound.
clarity experience.
So I think you mentioned something that you had done before. You kind of like guided journey. What do you think? Do you think that for example, the ayahuasca experience, like I would definitely not even necessarily recommend a person unless they have a lot of experience to take it on their own.
Yeah. So
like you definitely want to have like a guided journey. Like what do you think would be the experience like when you take it like the way you're offering it, where it comes on slower way? Would you recommend like somebody do a guided journey, or is it better? Do you think it's something a person can do on their own?
I don't think people should do it on their own because there is sort of the level of, I do it by myself.
You have more experience.
I have more experience. I've done hundreds of these
You said
sessions.
you're embedded
And I'm
with the
still,
plant.
but I'm still, there's that moment of like, oh my gosh, you know? and when you have just another person breathing in the room, that you lessen that. And just to compare with ayahuasca, ayahuasca is so, it deals so much with power that you need to control it. You need, you need to call that your spirits. You need to have that there. In some ways, I think the difference with Salvia and doing Salvia sessions, you need to be quiet, you need to get out of the way, and you need to just let that happen. It's a really
you have to focus on it. In my experience, like you have to. It's not just gonna bowl you. Although I've never done the slow acting in the more potent way, but in my experience of it's like you have to like. It's like if you open, even if you open your eyes, sometimes it can just like totally go away, and then you close your eyes again, and then it's like
the new stuff, it doesn't go away, but it's still that theme is there that you
it's how much you want to invest
engage in it. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to like kind of walk around the room, it would be spinning and it wouldn't be fun. You'd want to lie down like you could if you tried to. Where I think the classics and even ayahuasca, you couldn't be able to. You're having that experience. Yeah, there's not a question of it. And so in this sense, that's I think a really nice thing for like non-psychedelia America to kind of integrate with these states is that it has a little more workability. You know, like people are kind of only going to go as far as they kind of allow themselves. And as a facilitator, that's what we want. You know, we start off slow, we do another session, get a little deeper.
And I also think there's also value in the community aspect of doing it. You know, when you're in a guided way. You know, feeling that you have the support of another person who's also going through something really intense in their own experience. So I feel like that also, you know, like in ayahuasca and the yoga, like it's just like, you know, it's part of the whole tribe, it's part of the tribal culture, it's part of the community. I feel like there's some value in that also.
I'm personally just a little, for Salvia, I'm a little concerned about psychic bleed over because there's a lot.
Like if you did it in a group.
Well, I mean, just say the Hopkins Salvador one, there was bleed over from people from session to session who weren't even having contact with each other.
Like energetic.
People were going into other people's sessions.
You were blaming me for stuff. You were.
Yeah, so there's some of us here that did the Salvador Day study at Hopkins, and so we were smoking it, right? And none of us were telling each other what our experiences were, but we were experiencing, like I had experienced one of, like a day or two later, I went into one of her experiences. Yeah, I mean, it got weird, right?
It's funny because even before you brought this up
Like
2 minutes ago, I was like, I gotta ask him about paranormal stuff.
Yeah, so it's super, I mean, it's highly, the psychic bleed over is crazy. I mean, there's that psychic phenomenon is whack. I mean, it's so, and this is another major thing, you know, about, you know, everyone always kind of says that, you know, shamanism, they look, you know, like, you know, anthropological literature, shamans take this drug to find lost objects, right? It's like
What?
Yeah, that's a
thing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a thing?
That's a classic anthropological
Oh my
thing
God.
about shamanism. But,
They all record with it.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, you probably can do that.
but Salvia does that.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about, like, I was up over in this corner of the room and I was going over here. Like, they were, you know, traveling through spaces. Like, that's it. Like, everyone talks about
Is there a way to like?
Listen with that.
Image of the spirit world, like interacting with spirits, like what are they like?
So everyone has a very personal experience about the spirits they contacted. So some people meet dead relatives, some people meet guardians, some people meet, you know, tricksters.
Cosmic space elves.
Yes. Yeah, mantises. So it's not necessarily like everyone sees the same things, even though yesterday we did a session and the Minotaur type demon with horns appeared, which is actually a very common thing. So I don't know. Put the Minotaur horns up there with you know, the elves. It's true. I don't know. And that could just basically be, you know, the brain. That could be the part of the brain that you're actually seeing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you like break down the swirl effect of like what part of the brain is that, and you know, people kind of like gone down that rainbow of optical hallucinations versus which part of the experience. So.
Yeah, I always wonder. Ayahuasca has this gesture character, and it's like, is that my brain hallucinating it and creating this character, something in my subconscious, or is there actually something out there and now I'm just tuned into it, perceiving it, and you know, there's that.
Yes and no.
Right.
I'm pretty curious about this psychological bleed over thing that you're talking about, and like what do you see that happening in the studies that sessions that you're doing?
Well, yesterday I did a session, and in the morning I was thinking about the Minotaur thing that kept appearing, and it did appear. I don't know if, I mean, there's no start, there's no end. It's never begun, it's never end. You know, like, you can't, and for me it's hard to tease that out, you know, like, in my mind. And I had an interesting experience. I mean, I don't know if this, I just being linear about these things, it's really hard, you know. As I made a decision to be open and like, let's really facilitate, let's be above ground with Salvia, and you know, we're moving our living quarters out of our building right now. We're about to put in a second sensory deprivation tank and offer Salvia to the people, right? And part of me, there's a lot of fear involved in that. And Monday night, in the day, I did a session of Salvia just to really meditate on that. And I saw like, oh, the shit's really gonna hit the fan in Baltimore. Which it did, you know. But it was like, but that's what it needs, you know. It needs that balance, you know. The world gets crazier, and then we need to up it, and we need to up it, we need to up it. Yeah. And in some ways, it's like the instability in the city creates a vacuum to bring in this medicine, you know. At least for me, at my point, you know. And I think in a lot of ways, what's been going down in Baltimore it's always been sort of a magical city. There's a real water and oil paradoxical thing. There's no question that there's a lot of psychedelics going on here. You know, there's magic going on. There's a reason why, you know, the institutions are having it happen, the underground is having it happen. It's like, this is going to help our society heal and like bring in a new era. We see, I mean, Baltimore, if anything, is a lightning rod of exactly what's wrong with capitalism and oppression and all the trauma of generations of people, you know, of what we have with poverty and enslavement and control and power and all that. Like, Baltimore is the place that I think out of anywhere in America that I've been so clearly represents that.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we got a
Salvia the only psychedelic worker?
Yeah, when I started really focusing on salvia, it told me to stop smoking cannabis. You know, I have no desire to smoke cigarettes either, or do any other really psychedelic things. And I think for part of me to be an open person about it, I want to be clean as possible. You know, and just not have that paranoia or have that fear of like, I have a ton of mushrooms, you know, in my top drawer and maybe that, you know, also, yeah. I mean, for me, I find it's like the most workable. It's actually somehow, in some ways, it's not, like, it's that weird paradox of being mystical, but not being more practical, like practical mysticism in some way, because everyone has these same experiences. Everyone sort of talks about like reliving memories and reprocessing memories, or making contact with us and removing energetic blockages in there. It's like the phenomena is really, everyone speaks on the same variations. So it's like kind of a fun, practical way to approach life and working.
Do you ever compare the traditional cultural knowledge and application of the plant to sort of the triad framework that you, I guess, experience reflexively and also see in applications in your clinical practice?
Well, there's not much, I mean, the Mazateks who use it, I don't know if I trust a lot of the writings, you know, because you're dealing with people who kind of pop into communities for a year or so and talk to one or two people.
And say they use it to find lost objects.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with, I mean, I think this kind of work is like everyone's like has a different way of working with these medicines, right? And so I think that these kinds of anthropology and stuff like that is really a whack science in that sense. It's hard to believe there's sort of truth behind that. And I mean, there's some people out there who've been initiated and have written stuff about it, and there's some themes appear, you know, like healing, you know, reliving memories and stuff like that seem to be the core focus of Salvia.
Well, I would say just specifically, I mean, it's always used in the sort of, I mean, one just specific reference to sort of the triad is that it's always used in this like, because you just like a lot of use of indigenous in Mesoamerica, it was like taken under the guise of Christianity or whatever, so it's always like within this like Catholic sort of, which is kind of the triad. And that's always what makes the whole like the liturgy is like, you know, thanking like the Father, the Son.
Yes.
But it's actually, even though it's like they say those two things, it's really all about like the Virgin Mary is like the main.
Yeah.
But so there's that like triad.
Yeah. Or the triad is like also positive and negative and transcendent. You know, it's, yeah.
So talking about that,
yeah, this, I mean, we're all, yeah, we do that, right? Yeah. And that's the thing is like, because of, you know, just focusing on the psychedelic healing. So, you know, the problem I think with the template of people traveling other countries to do it is that there's not I see this just right in the flotation tank. People come back and they're just like, I don't know what to do. You know, or even a lot of times there are other people who've done maybe a psilocybin session at Hopkins and they're like, well, what do I do now? You know, there's not the community, like they don't have the resources there, you know, like you've done either in Mexico and you come back and then you're back in the same patterns, right? Or you've done it in Peru and then like, where do I find this kind of stuff?
but did you say that that your work shows that it's sort of like a community thing there, where they relate to each other?
I mean, I think that part of the template of Salvia is about relationship and community. Yeah, I agree with that, how its nature is. Yeah.
Well, then we sure as hell need that.
Yeah, right.
So does your understanding of the plant, its applications, does that influence at all your business model, or design of sort of the flotation clinic and what you've done to date, and also your plans moving forward, how you've designed a product for?
Yeah, so basically when I first started exploring Salvia, I had the realization by doing Salvia and just meditating on it, that I would get an isolation tank, because that would be the easiest transition culturally for people to understand. Like, there's the way to heal yourself that's not just drugs, basically. You know, there's hypnosis, there's all this stuff, right? There's massage, there's meditation, there's flotation tanks. And I got a clear message from Salvia saying, go get an isolation tank. If you get an isolation tank, that will become like a good enough front, you know, to have the interface for people to come and float. And then after a while, when you start talking with them, you're like, well, yeah, we do this in the back too.
Swim through it.
So, I mean, but it's also like, we're dealing with synchronicity. This is life. You know, you don't know, you get messages and you're like, I want to do this. And then, you know, like I got the way the guy got the tank was magical in some weird ways.
Totally it was.
Yeah, and it was, so you can't, I mean, yeah, this is, and that's the thing, is if we, you know, as we're entirely moving out of our building, we're keeping it for the float tanks, we're gonna have a whole second floor to hold, you know, gatherings like this, or, you know, so who knows what we'll have other rooms. And you know, I think that's an interesting thing. If anyone does feel called to this work, or you know, wants to interface with it in any ways, it's wide open. You know, it's sky's the limit. Well, we can talk.
I just had a little flash here about, you know, releasing this into Baltimore, you know, because it's legal, first of all. Well, that would be interesting.
Well, yeah, right?
I think so.
I mean, who's not? You're maybe the good drug law. Anyone else? You're a lawyer. Who else thinks? What can we get away with?
What's the can you? There's no law, but like was said earlier, what's on paper versus what I mean.
Well, we need you to go.
So, as far as I know, the only thing that I can think of, I think I shared this with you before. If you make a medical claim, then that becomes that's an FDA's turf. Then you could be popped on, false, like whatever it's called, like selling something therapeutic that it hasn't been FDA approved. So you got to be like, you know, the supplements, you know, these statements have not been approved.
But I mean, but for facilitation, I mean, that's the question. Yeah, just be like, well, you just come in and you just do this.
Yeah. You know, lack of meditation is not a psychiatric disorder, so facilitating meditation is not, making a medicinal claim. So as far as I know now, in terms of informal harassment, that can always happen. God, I would hope to God there's higher priorities.
I know, I mean, our building across the street, there was the pawn shop was looted and burned. I mean, I think, you know, we've operated a float tank, turned up the cameras, you know, without a business license, you know, for 2 years now. No one's ever knocked on our door. So, you know, there's the benefit of living in West Baltimore in that way. You don't have nosy neighbors asking for permits.
The person shooting up heroin walking down the
Exactly,
street.
that's the bigger, that's the bigger the social problem. So,
You can
do I
have
really
a
release a
little
sign? Oh, I probably should make one. Whenever we use for floating, when people float, you know, people are just gonna be like, I was not going. What? Yeah, it's like skateboarding.
What do you think are the evolutionary implications of salvia use or psychedelic use in general, in terms of maybe epigenetics? Yeah, we were talking about that before, epigenetics of memory. I guess, like, do you think that is a question that can be asked or answered by science? What are the implications of salvia use on a wide scale in terms of evolving our collective?
I mean, I guess that's a good question. And if we knew, it'd probably be crazy. But I mean, the whole idea that we can unlock all this stuff that's inside of our DNA and become super beings that are multidimensional, you know, are we just, you know, coming to this point where we are breaking out of childhood, you know, into the galactic communication, you know?
Like, there's never been a longitudinal study or a multi-generational study, really, for psychedelics. to look at like how DNA evolves over time. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's
um,
hard to say.
Is that
Yeah,
true?
And the cultures that do use them are pretty, pretty on point. Actually.
Stone date theory, Terence McKenna, right? Who's using psilocybin mushrooms that cause a lot to create language and
But I mean, like, studies that have been, there's barely any, like, diseases of the brain.
Yeah.
Like the elderly in those, like, tribes don't get, like, Alzheimer's, for
Yeah.
example. So I feel like in terms of, like, an evolutionary type of, I feel like, you
They'll be
know,
more healthy.
you'll probably be more sane, more healthy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think
in your old
it's
age.
like, if your brain's locked in and it doesn't have any flexibility or it doesn't learn, it doesn't open up, it's going to start to rot.
There are some studies that psychedelics there's a correlation that more psychedelics means less mental illness. I think I've seen studies about this.
Yeah. In fact, a couple of papers in the last year and a half that I helped with, found that people who had lifetime history of psychedelics, one, and amongst like 26,000 plus prisoners in the Southeast, they were less likely to go back to jail out of all of these prisoners. So the subset of individuals who had ever used a classic psychedelic in their life were less likely to go back to jail. So it's recidivism rate, having control over a bunch of other variables. And also another study showing decreased suicidality, past month suicidal ideation, past month psychological distress, suicide attempt. And that's actually out of about 200,000 people across the entire United States. And this is the government's biggest survey on drug use and health. It's called the National Household Survey on Drug Use and Health. And the data are publicly available. Some colleagues went in and found that, after controlling for everything else you can find in the data set, that you look at whether they use a classic psychedelic, that they decreased, they look better on all these metrics. Of course, you never can really show that people who were destined for whatever reason to go on to do a psychedelic is ultimately correlational.
Right, yeah.
But it's certainly consistent with all of the evidence in therapeutic trials and plenty of anecdotes that these things, when done right, can be really helpful in terms of decreasing mental illness.
And I think, that's like what people are so.
Yeah, in the wrong context.
Yeah. And why microdosing is a really interesting area that people are doing, just to be like, you get it just right below, it can still operate, and just in that background, everything's kind of getting moved around, and alleviates the mood, changes that, and breaks down the visual patterns that are negative and stuff like that. And that's what, for me, I'm really excited about Salvia being kind of very
Homeopathic kind of.
Yeah, but it's doing some real, I think it can do some real stuff. I mean, you've been doing some of the microdose, right? It's good.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed like forgetting to smoke a cigarette when I would have, going for a walk. I would have smoked a cigarette, but I didn't even think about it. I didn't bring it.
Yeah.
But just general, feeling just more aware of environment and more just kind of tuned into noticing, noticing sort of magic around me, and just having feeling this sort of connection to all of these things. I've had experiences of Salvia, but just without any, and it's just I don't know, it's sort of the tether back to that other world. You feel the tether, but it's I don't see that other world.
with the microdoses, it doesn't affect your motor skills.
I mean, with the levels that I.
Everyone's a little sensitive
that
to
again.
Salvia doses, and so if I actually do too much microdose, I feel high and it'd be clumsy. So it's just,
But
it's all.
you would go about your, you do other things. You're not just sitting with your eyes.
No, yeah, just I get to get the more.
It's like below threshold.
Yeah, micro.
Yeah, totally below the threshold.
Right.
I personally haven't even gotten to taken enough that I felt any motor control or anything, or close my eyes and
Yeah, and so it seems to be with the Salvia microdose, if you take it later in the evening or later in the afternoon, and really if you do too much, you won't, there is a slight stimulant effect. So, that's an interesting area for people who like to do dream work and stuff like that.
I think I can see that. It's I've had the experience of coming in with Shuma, and they have it in a powder form. and take it in a really large amount, ceremonially, it's like a very strong, like psychedelic experience. But if you just take like this 2 spoonfuls of it or whatever, you can just go up and hike up a mountain and not get tired at all, you know. So it just kind of
or like a little powder.
Or even like a coca powder, like you know, like just for energy or
mushrooms.
So there's I spent 10.
All sorts of tools for that. You know, that's really needed. You know, and that's everyone needs a different.
it's always the same end.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're all human. We all have the same forms and problems and different
It's
histories.
just different paths.
I really like your metaphysical model.
Okay.
Just like when I asked something about that, you said the 3, the triad, which is like haunted or echoed, however you might put it, like the Trinity perhaps. Where did that come from? And like, and I guess the concept that's quite useful in a lot of this work, that I was wondering how it relates, that is the ego. Just is that part of the mind? Is that the mind? Or where does the ego, from a lot of different discourses, fit in your model?
Yeah.
But where it comes from is what I'm most interested in.
Okay, so basically, this is a pretty good, fun experience. When I was the triad. I mean, I don't know. I've always sort of resonated with the triad, but when I was involved in the smoking Salvador A study at Hopkins, I had these experiences when I started to make contact with beings. When they appeared, it was Mickey Mouse, and so basically Mickey Mouse became sort of this, psychedelic totem for me. And this distillation is a triad, really. It's the head and the two ears. So just over time, it's been this kind of like, whoa, why is this here? And it seemed not to be like some compounds are very earth-based, very four, And I would say some of the classic psychedelics are more about the earth and more about four. And then for some reason, Salvia is really about triad. And for whatever reason, it seemed to make sense that everything that I was experiencing was pointing to 3, and got into that, and I got some results. So why necessarily that? And what was the other?
The ego.
The what?
The ego.
So the ego. So one of the interesting things. It deals with history in some ways. I think it's the Salvia experience. It deals with history, and the ego, in some regards, is I guess the soul and the psyche. We have all these words for it. Ego is a word for kind of relates to those things, but maybe it's more about our history template that we're interacting with. But I see definitely. I had an experience. That kind of illustrated this with Salvia, where I was having an experience that was intense. It was a strong Salvia experience, and I saw a spiral, and in that spiral there was little dots, and those dots were all connected. And then, as I traced back each one, I saw that this intense experience that I was having now in the work I was doing and meditating on Salvia and working on it related to that experience where I had another intense one, and that one related to that one, and that one related to that one, and that one related to that one. So there was this continuation of a theme throughout life, right? And that all the work that I had done in the past and everything that was difficult and hard and painful or magical or exciting, all was about that experience right at the moment. And that right at that moment was on this template, this membrane, and then beyond that membrane was non-existence. And so that's kind of I don't know, but somehow like plays into that. We have these very thin films of self, and when you come in contact with it by seeing it shift away, you see why, why you are who you are that way. And when you see that process, I think there's a very healing experience for that. You're like, oh, okay, that was okay, but now I'm here, it's okay.
Yeah, that experience of this moment is what everything before this was, so that this moment of transformation could happen. It's like we had that a long time. And I always thought it was what you said about the zigzag.
So it's a soft,
yeah. That's the first time that I ever used Salvia. like a million years ago, and it was like this thing that someone gave me, like some leaves in a bag. I don't even know what this is. And I smoked it, and actually, by the way, with you, accident. And I smoked it, and I was like sitting in the room, and then like nothing happened, and I was like, that didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, the whole world turned into a sawtooth wave. Yeah. It was like and there was this thing of like, and it was these like chevron pattern, and I had this experience of like, oh, it's between that. Like you go between that. That's the thing, and then it's back to normal. But like,
so I think that's common. Most people will talk about that sawtooth wave.
I never had that, but I've definitely like the thin membrane between realities. That's just like that was like a huge part.
This is another interesting thing that if you want to relate to like DMTs, like DMT in a lot of ways will have the domed cathedrals. You'll be inside in spaces that are domed in a lot of ways, and in some ways will have the V zipper that unzips. So it's a total, in a world of tricksters, it's somehow like the inverted trickster, in that way. You're like, what's this?
It's like a giant spiral.
I've been in the Salvia too. Yeah. But I mean, it is interesting that it's kind of backwards for a lot of people. The curve stays. Yeah.
It's good that you're talking about the three, because I was reading the book by Salvia Divinorum. It's a well-known clinician. Doing it for like 40 years, like most of his life. And he talks a lot about the three. Yeah. Like he relates it a lot in the experience of what it was. And just like he said, this book is almost like a metaphysical kind of like almost like self-help. But he talks a lot about like fractality and time and space and the number three. And number three, it's like he has the whole thing about like three.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's definitely related to that sort of experience.
Yeah. I mean, psychedelics, right? What's the core? Set and setting, right? Then you have those two things all that across all psychedelic experiences. You say set and setting. What that really is a triad, because you put those two together and you get the experience out of that. And set is like the positive, and setting is the receptive, and then you get that experience of those coming together, positive and negative, and action. Very real. Yes?
No, I still say, because you emphasize relationship a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. You emphasize relationship a lot. And the three is, like, your exact mechanism of, like, exploding. Yeah. And then the points between each of the sides as connecting all the parts. You wouldn't get that with four. The diagonals wouldn't meet. Right. So the three works for the kind of model of relationship. It's like a nice fit.
Yes. Mickey Mouse.
That's right. Which may or may not be my fault.
But that would be a really, just to like talk about experiments, like this is what's really fun is like salvia's legal. We can come up with some really wacky experiments and do it and be just like, all right, we sat in a room and we all took salvia and then we all just wrote about what happened afterwards, And like one person could secretly be really focusing on something, or just not, just see if there is like some sort of thing that could happen. The sky's the limit, and then you can be open about it, and that's the thing, is prohibition makes things so controlled. If it's why, why,
In that really fun, salvia way.
Well, I think you gotta go a little deeper.
Change the definition.
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy.
I would do it on
exactly. I mean, it's fun. If you like to see reality get peeled away and dismantled and contact with, interdimensional beings, that's my kind of fun. Feeling euphoric and dancing is not my kind of fun. So I
Those extra-dimensional beings, I've actually had recently a colleague from out of town scientist said, oh yeah, salvia stuff. What are those guys' names? I said, what are you talking about? The guys' names you talked about. The Wonder what? Oh, the Wonder Kid.
The Wonder Kid.
Like, so this is getting around.
Yeah. Exactly.
people are like, what are the Wonderkin? I was like, what is that? They showed it again and again.
What are the Wonderkin?
So Wonderkin was Kelsey Carly's being, so she, during the yeah, it was like, she asked them, who are you guys, what's your name? They're like, we're the Wonderkin. So, but if, I mean, that
The entities call themselves that?
yeah, that's what they translated it to, or, yeah, that's how they were. But if you look at that,
Over a series of, there's like
Yeah.
a child, a juvenile at one point, and then the parent showed up, forget, then I within the same session, but then
Yeah.
they were again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, now I'm gonna ask the question, ask them next time.
Yeah.
And then you ask them next time.
yeah.
And then
that's
they
what
give you an
said.
answer. So it's this really interesting thing, so many people out there take
Yeah.
this substance, like, it's coming at one time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, put that in the
Well,
drawer.
that's what-
And so, you know, when you give it like, 16 or 17 times in a row.
It's like, that's what
You
I
see
think
some really interesting things.
Yeah,
It's like
continuation.
stop motion animation.
Yeah. But you pick up, I mean, that's the thing, you pick up where you were the last time, and that's what's so interesting about Salvia in that regard. You go so far, and then, because it works on memory in that sense, and so basically you're building architecture of a space in your brain. It's like you walk, first time you walk in the room, and you're like, it's all dark, I don't know what's going on. The next time, you're in that same room every time, and you're like, okay, the chair is here, and every time you go in there, it's that same space. And, you know, I mean, this is
Plant-based computer console.
yeah, exactly. You're programming it every time. And it's interesting to see that. And so, yeah, I don't know that Salvia can you learn to navigate it. You know, that's that reverse tolerance because it's the exact same space because it's working on your memory. So you're learning how to become a interdimensional being.
I just wanted to tell you that I just remembered, I didn't even know that there was a Minotaur, that's a thing.
Yeah, Minotaur's a thing. Anyone else? Yeah, you have
One day,
yeah.
well, never in the session, but after one really intense, probably the most intense like tank session,
Yeah.
and I was walking home from my house, the sky was like these insane clouds of like fucking like bulls, like horn bulls
Yeah.
like, going through the sky, and I was like, oh shit, I think I have a picture of it.
After a float tank session?
After
The float
Salvia
session. He was one of the
yeah,
research.
I just remembered that. Like,
Well, and that's what I think is when we think about the inner ear for balance, that kind of creates that same thing. The hippocampus too also has that curl kind of experience, and so it works with that sort of same receptors, and so maybe that's why people are talking about that like bull or horn kind of thing constantly happening because the brain is, you're seeing those mechanisms actually twirl down, and that, you know, I mean that's kind of interesting.
not seated in the clouds though.
But you saw the I mean, this is it. You're you know, the inner world and the outer world, and metaphysics 101, right? So rise above, so below. Everything you do inside is mirrored in the outside world, and that's why, you know, the best way to heal the world is to heal yourself, right? Because the world will reflect that. You know, seek unity between those two states. That's obviously being more of a dreamer than a classic psychedelic, right? And I think that's maybe where the microdose style, at least in my experience, has been really beneficial, just by like doing it and just lying down, slowly, gently going into the dream world, just being really right there. It's not super powerful. It's not super tired. You know, you can pop in there. But people who do, I just sent a bunch of material to someone who's really deep into all the dream stuff. So I'm waiting to hear back of how they can find the application.
Do you find that it affects your dreams?
Anyone here find that it affects your dreams? Anyone that's done this out yet? Yeah, anyone? Do you find it affects your dreams?
Not noticeably.
I felt like I was accessing my dreams.
Yeah.
Like the experience was going into my dreams, but I didn't notice my regular dreams at night being affected.
Yeah, I think that's
It seems like a similar navigation, like in that. I mean, for me, the dream world, like after a Salvia experience, then when I dream, maybe it's easier to navigate.
Yeah.
I think what floored me about Salvia is just how much you are aware and you can remember, which just doesn't happen with dreams. We're like grasping at them and they're disappearing, but with Salvia, it's like right there.
Yeah, it's right there. I have very limited experience with astral projection, and I find that Salvia is basically the same experience that I have experienced when I've done astral projection or whatever. You know, sort of like that same distortions of the hands getting smaller and bigger, and you know, it's time the room spinning and stuff like that. The salvia is working on the exact same mechanism of that, you know, coming out of the body and having all that resonance going. So there might be something, and that may be, you know, someone threw some money together to get a brain scanner that we
Throw some money together to get a brain scanner. You could probably work that one out like you worked on the flow tank. Kickstarter.
Yeah, well,
No, you just look tomorrow, there will be one on Craigslist. Like $250.
Alright, put it on in.
I'm going to Owings Mills.
But no, I mean, I think I was just reading the other day that they had located the area of the brain where people sense their body, right? And they can kind of like, they were playing stimulus and touching their body, so people could like actually project themselves in the room through, and then they were mapping it in the scan and stuff. But that would be, take that data and map it with the self-experience and see if there's that, you know. And this is, there's so much you can do. Yeah. So, Empire? Oh, I can go. I mean, if anyone wants to
run after the car.
I'll run to the car and I'll bring some. I have some powder and I have some microdose syrup. I'm feeling pretty topped out. How does that feel?
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I guess I would ask, well,
Let me go to my car and come back and we can just keep hanging out.
Yeah. If you haven't had a chance to sign in, please do, so I can keep you on the email list, let you know what's going on, and also just have an idea of where the hell everyone found out about this too. Anyone not gotten a chance to? Cool. And so next topic, so June 9th. Hopefully, I think it should be the same venue here. Al Garcia from the Hopkins Psychedelic Studies Group. What do you call this? Yeah, Al's going to come talk about some of his work with psilocybin research they're doing over at Hopkins, and some of his own work is also just a general overview of the different academic research kind of going on in the space of psychedelics. So if you guys enjoy what's going on here, please come again, tell your friends, you know. But thanks for coming. The website is forthcoming. But you can go to Facebook, look up psychedelic seminars there. We're on Twitter at PsychSems, PSYCKSEMS. The website's not there yet, but if you're on this list, then you'll get emails. So thank you, guys.